Hello, Radiant Soul. Welcome to episode 12 of the Devotional Drip, where we are exploring all things the art of higher self embodiment. My little butterfly friends are here to join us as an adornment spell today, which I will speak more to as we get into this transmission. And for those of you who are joining for the first time, welcome. I am so excited to have you here. The Devotional Drip is a free weekly higher self-embodiment and personal development coaching series for creatives, leaders, visionaries, and light workers to support you in igniting your higher self connection, embodying your higher self expression, and inspiring your multidimensional self-care practice across the altars of your personal and professional life so that you can meet the call of your divine purpose. And I know if you're tuning in here, that call is loud and big and sometimes all encompassing. So you can meet that call embodied in your peace and power and capacity to deeply care for yourself as you navigate the wild, divine landscape of your human journey. My name is Sarah. I'm a higher self-embodiment doula, multi-passionate artist, entrepreneur, coach, and consultant. I offer somatic, artful, and spiritual portals into self-care, self-healing, self-expression, spiritual awakening, and higher self-embodiment. I support creatives, leaders, visionaries, and light workers in stepping into their primordial power and meeting the call of their soul mission and divine purpose as they learn to deeply care for the multidimensionality of their being: blood, bone, mind, body, heart, spirit, and honey, and walk the nonlinear path of healing, awakening, becoming, and embodying their higher selves. We go live every Monday for the weekly drip at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Drop in the comments whether on the live or on the replay if you're tuning in so I can say hello to you. And you can subscribe, to the newsletter at the link in the description below to receive exclusive offers, replays, and corresponding somatic journal and movement prompts, and receive a practice playlist to support you in integrating, digesting, and applying what comes forward through this drip. Be sure to subscribe to the newsletter channel, the YouTube channel if you haven't already, and turn on the bell to receive notifications when we go live. And last thing before we jump in, at the end of this drip, I'll talk a little bit about the virtual, available worldwide, multidimensional self-care retreat and higher self-embodiment boot camp happening this weekend in the Blood, Bone, and Honey Zoom Temple. Journey and download dancing, journaling, visioning, and journeying into the inner landscape and multidimensional expression of you. So stay tuned for that if you want to hear more, and you'd like to go ahead and claim your spot, you can do so at the link below in the description. The checkout page is linked there, and we'll talk more about that at the end of this drip. Okay, I'm in the red today. I'm coming through with the blood. Are you ready for the blood? Are you ready for the bloodfulness, for the aliveness of the art of higher self-embodiment? Hi, Helen. Helen says, okay, glamour magic. That's right. These, I'll talk a little bit more about this when we get to adornment, but these little butterfly clips are quite literally from when I was a little girl, and my mom is actually currently working with my grandmother to clear out what was our family home, our childhood home, after my grandfather passed last year. They're doing the sweep, they're doing the clearing, they're in the ceremonial transition, and inside of that, my mom has been sending me boxes of like things from my childhood, and I just received boxes of my grandmother's clothes, which was so wild because I have like since I was 5 years old, I have been like waiting to receive these garments, and I'll just give you a little peek at one of her skirts. So this is one of my grandma's skirts that I'm wearing today on the bottom, since you can't see the bottom on the drip. And it brings me so much joy. It brings me so much joy to adorn the altar of my being in this way. And we'll talk about that when we get to the honey aspect of higher self-embodiment. So let's get into it. Today's topic is the art of higher self-embodiment. Again, if you're tuning in live or on the replay, drop your name, drop in where you're tuning in from, say hello, perhaps. You can share if you've ever had an experience of embodying your higher self, or what higher self-embodiment means to you. I always want this space to be open for all of your wisdom to pour through. We are co-creating and weaving this space, so please feel free to share your wisdom. It is always welcomed. Nothing that I say is capital T truth or absolute. We are in this investigation together, so as always, take what resonates, please leave the rest. This is meant to nourish you. So it's like if you're eating the food on your plate and you get to something that's like, you're like, oh, like my stomach, like that doesn't feel good for me right now. I actually want a little bit more of this. Like, be in your agency, be in your authority, practice being in your autonomy and honoring like that feels good and that doesn't feel good right now. And I get to filter through my higher self-consciousness what I allow into my field. And then if something gets in that feels a little shaky, rocky, then I can also meet that and transmute that into more love, which we're going to talk about today. So take what resonates, leaves the rest. Before we dive into the art of higher self-embodiment, I'm going to give you a little background on the spell of Blood, Bone, and Honey and how she came to be, and the series of choices that my higher self prompted me to make through receiving intuitive hits, messages, and downloads through the body. And through my very real lived experience, because higher self-embodiment is not something that we do outside of our bodies. We do it in our bodies. I think there's been a lot of how do I want to say this? There's been many invitations to connect to the higher self through the upper chakras, right? Like in the spiritual space, in the wellness space. It's like we got to go up and we got to go out. But actually, what I want to tell you as a higher self-embodiment doula, as someone who teaches embodiment and invites people into a somatic experience of that higher self connection through their body and through their breath, it actually happens in the lower three chakras. It happens in the deep intelligence and wisdom of the pelvis. Higher self-embodiment is always prompting us to ask, what do we need? What do we want? And who are we? What do we love? What do we need to release? What do we need to receive? This is very like root to heart stuff. This is root to heart stuff. So we're in the blood, we're in the bones so that we can access the honey. So reseeding this, as we explore the conversation of the art of higher self-embodiment, I want to talk about the spell of Blood, Bone, and Honey, how that came into being, and what it was like to receive those downloads through my body and those promptings at the altar of my life in order to paint a picture for you, in order to use the tool of storytelling to illuminate and perhaps even inspire within you an intersection of relatability where you can be like, oh yeah, like I actually am already embodying my higher self, and here's the ways that I'm doing that, and here's the ways I can do that more consciously, because now I have more information. The power of information is so deep. We're moving out of the age of information into the age of embodiment. So we can read the books, we can take in the information, but the learning, the sharing, the expressing, the growing happens through embodying the wisdom codes. So we always have access to our higher self wisdom, our downloads, our intuition through the portal of our body, our breath, and intention to receive directions for the next steps on our path that will align us in the direction of our highest good. So, you know, you may have heard people talk about timelines and timeline jumping and quantum leaping. There are infinite timelines. To embody your higher self is to align to the timeline that brings you in alignment with your highest good. And when you make that choice for yourself, when you make the choice that's in alignment with your highest good, actually, that cannot be separated from the highest good of the collective, the highest good of all beings, because love is a gateway to an endless universe where the light of a billion stars forever glows through one eternal spirit, which is a little wisdom drop from one of our oracle cards that came forward today. So it's true that no matter how dark the path may feel or how dense it may seem in any given moment, There is always that inner light and that inner awareness at the center of your heart and being that you can turn to decide, to choose, to steward yourself in the direction of your next best steps. Sometimes all we need is to know that next best step. And if you are neurodivergent in any way, if you are a survivor of complex trauma, if you have ADHD, ADD, sometimes this desire to like have it all planned out, mapped out, know where we're going makes so much sense based on what we've survived and how we have interacted with the magic psychic ability of our cognitive function so far. And also, if we can learn to meet this breath, this moment, and just the next step, resourced in the power of our higher self presence, which is to say, through the inner awareness of loving kindness as Thich Nhat Hanh teaches, bless his soul, may he rest in peace and power. If we can meet just the next step from that place, then we're aligning with the timeline of our highest good, and then everything that starts unfolding within that timeline on that path is also resonating from a frequency of making the choice from a place of love. No matter how dark or dense the path may feel in the moment, there is always the inner light and inner awareness at the center of your heart and being that you can turn to decide your next best steps. This is your higher self. This is this higher consciousness. This is this wisdom consciousness. This is this unified field of love that we have access to through our body, through our breath, and through the willingness to pause and turn inward instead of stay distracted by everything that's happening outside of us. So then we can return to that, right? It's not about bypassing, it's about resourcing so that we can meet what's there from a place of resource, from a place of breath, from a place of perhaps parasympathetic activation, where in our nervous systems we have the capacity and ability and resilience to meet what's there and actually digest it and process it versus it getting stuck, which often will cause us to freeze. So to just even know that this is a choice starts to create a field of empowerment around you. Like a candle on the path, you illuminate the path with your love. Decisions made from fear resonate differently, vibrate differently from decisions made through love. And I know that sounds simple, but I just am going to invite you to like meditate and massage that into your being for a moment and think about a decision that you've made from fear versus a decision that you've made from love. And sometimes we need the fear in order to direct us towards what is love. So it's not like fear is not allowed. My coach to me a couple weeks ago said, it's not about, we don't need to get rid of all the fear. We don't need to just excavate all the fear, right? But we can fear less. And like, can even if fear is filling up 40% of our cup, can 60% of it be love? Even if we were at a 10 anxiety, are we now at a 9? And can we celebrate the fuck out of a 9 and drop the absolutes, drop the like all or nothing, which again, if you're a survivor of trauma, if you're neurodivergent, if you have ADHD, like really softening into presence with what is right now versus the evidence that you have based on what already happened and what you're projecting onto the future. If we can just, those are powerful tools. We need those. Those have saved our lives and will continue to. That's also our wisdom. But to move from center and then to use our quantum awareness to resource the wisdom from our past to integrate into this now moment in order to move forward, that is the art of higher self-embodiment. One of the coolest things to me about the art of higher self-embodiment is that you can think the painting or the mural of your life is going to look one way or go in one direction, and then something more magnificent, which sometimes dresses itself up in something not so appealing. Sometimes it's like, where is this mural going? Like this is a little chaotic. I'm thinking of like the meme of the guy with like all of the strings and like the push pins on the board who's like trying to tie it all together. Like sometimes it'd be like that for real. But one of the coolest things also is that sometimes like that is the blessing. And sometimes something more magnificent than you had been previously able to conceive starts to come into form, and that is the process of trusting divine timing. What happens when I let go and I stop pushing and forcing and bossing myself and my life around, and I let my life and I let my heart and I let my vision reveal itself to me from within versus without. We've been programmed to look outside of us, to scan the environment for danger, which again, what a powerful tool that we have. What a needed tool. What a needed tool discernment is in this lifetime. It is needed, it is valid, it is worthy. It is your wisdom. And also, are you harnessing that capacity in alignment with your highest good? And are you utilizing it from a place of agency and higher self awareness, consciousness, capacity? So the mural starts to reveal itself, right? What do we need to be able to do? We need to be available. We need to be in our availability. So again, parasympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic activation, rest and digest, available. We need to be available to receive that direction from within. We create availability through our breath. We create availability through connection, through forming connection between our mind and body. We create spaciousness for infinite potential through our connection to our higher selves. So we have to cultivate availability. And if you've been feeling like really backed up, almost like you know when the sink gets clogged and you're trying to do the dishes and it's like the sink is backed up and you gotta like pour the Drano down or vinegar or hot water or whatever your method is, like that's what happens in our systems, and we need to create the spaciousness to actually dump out. And then as my mentor says, too much clearing makes a dull witch. So we have to then make the choice to fill back up, to drink the water. And if you haven't taken a sip of water today, or maybe in a moment, I invite you to do so. I'm going to resource myself with that now. So we create availability through our body. We create availability through our breath and the sacredness of our right to pause. We can call this the holy pause or the sacred pause that we always have access to. Sometimes it can feel like, oh, I have to do that thing right now. I can't wait. I have to respond to that person. I have to do that thing. This needs to happen right now. This is what I'm talking about when it comes to surrender and the mural that's unfolding and the heart that's revealing itself. Like what happens when we back off? When we press pause and we reconnect and we stop, drop, and self-care, we create more space, we create resilience, we create capacity. And I know what it's like to feel resistant to that, to creating a space to be mindful, but meeting that resistance is actually a part of cultivating your faith and devotion. I'm going to say that again. Meeting your resistance is actually part of cultivating your faith and resistance. Your resistance is actually an ally showing you where you're ready to actually build more agency, more strength, more responsibility, more ability to respond to your life. Ultimately, the art of higher self-embodiment is an art of surrender. It's an art of devotion. It's an art of willingness. It's an art of obedience. It's an art of stewardship. To embody your higher self is to honor all expressions of your being and corners of your consciousness and inner and outer altars of your life as worthy of your attention and intention to become only more love. In a world addicted to suffering, domination, control, hate, and oppression, your higher self will show you where you are upholding that consciousness within yourself and where you are consenting to and recreating that suffering in your own life, and where there is an opportunity to be more loving, kind, and compassionate to your own heart so that you can be an embodiment of peace and power. and shine that light. Shine that light onto the wholeness of your being, and then allow that light to pour out to the altar of your relationships, your community, your divine purpose, ultimately watering every altar of your life with your light. Drop in the comments if you could use a little light bath. If you could use a little light bath to meet that which feels dense and dark and scary and like blockage. If you could use that rinse of your light, let me know in the comments. So, receiving blood, bone, and honey. I received the name of blood, bone, and honey about 4 years ago when I was swimming in a body of salt water, which is just like, yeah, it was part of the spell. I haven't given birth to a human baby in this lifetime yet, but the only way I know how to describe this transmission that moved through me is that I gave birth to her in this pool of salt water. I was at my grandparents' house, and I had the blood, I had the honey as a part of the name, as a part of the spell, and I knew there was this third word. And I just was like, I was like in the water and all these words were coming through. I was in my birth doula training for the first time, and it was just all coming through. It was all coming through. And I was like, I got the hit to call Max, my husband. And he gave me bone. He gave me bone. So I had the blood and the honey, and he gave me bone, which is just quite the metaphor. And there's much more to this conception story, like how I was working as a studio manager for one of the most famous documentary photographers of all time in New York City, and had just graduated from Duke University with my master's degree in experimental and documentary arts, and had closed a multi-million-dollar museum deal with one of the biggest museums in the country that wanted to collect my boss's work. And long story short, he sexually assaulted me after I closed the museum deal, and offered me a raise and a very expensive print to keep my mouth shut. And I walked. It was one of the scariest things that I've ever done, but I knew it was the choice that I had to make in order to clear the path for what I wanted and what I could feel wanting me, which was blood, bone, and honey. Because here's the truth about the power and the spell of our wanting, of our desire, which we are going to explore so much this weekend in Journey and Download. What we want, what we are seeking, is also seeking us. But in order to receive it, we're back in receptive mode. In order to receive it, we need to become an energetic match. And I don't say this to provoke some scurrying, like, well, how do I become an energetic match? Am I good enough? Am I worthy enough? Because I think there's a lot of, how do I want to say this? There is the potential to create more suffering when it comes to working with things like being an energetic match, right? Which we could call the law of attraction. So we're not creating more noise. We're not creating more. We're not creating more things we need to do in order to be worthy. We're not doing more. We're doing less, actually. We're doing less. Because when we understand that what we seek is also seeking us, then we can drop the forcing, we drop the pushing, because we actually wouldn't want it any other way than our higher self and the source of light within us revealing to us what are the next steps. We actually don't want to be the director anymore. We give up our director role, and this is also the process of being an artist. For those who are artists here, I used to tell my photo students at Duke, like, you can't tell something what it is. You can't tell your photo project, this is what it's going to be. I couldn't tell Journey and Download, this is what you're going to be. I can't tell the Devotional Drip or Blood, Bone, and Honey, this is what you are. There's this co-creative revealing that's happening. So when we understand that what we seek is seeking us as well, then we can drop this sort of like trying to prove that we're worthy of what we actually want, and we can become the energetic match. Because Law of Attraction 101, this is like all you need to know about the Law of Attraction. Vibration precedes manifestation. That's it. Diluted into one little nugget of wisdom, one little pearl of wisdom. Vibration precedes manifestation. Your vibration is made up of the culmination of your energy. Your energy signature is created through your feeling state. We resource our emotions as energy in motion within us, as wisdom, directing the consciousness of our mind, body, and hearts to where our attention, our loving attention and awareness needs to go as stewards, as parents, and as mentors of our own consciousness, of our own being. So your vibration is made up of the culmination of your energy. Your energy signature is created through your feeling state, emotion, energy in motion. We're going to be doing all of this in Journey and Download this weekend, resourcing that wisdom. And And we can resource our emotions, our energy in motion within us as wisdom, directing the consciousness of our mind, our body, and our hearts, again aligning with that timeline of our highest good, to where our attention, intention, and awareness needs to go. So long story short, I was terrified to quit my job. I actually, I filmed myself in the moment of quitting, which is going to go into my film Adult in Training, which I started in grad school, which I'm going to revisit and start circulating this year. If you've been in one of my group mentorship programs before and we've done self-portrait work, I always point to this piece as such a healing experience in my life. And I'll talk about that more this weekend on day 3 of our retreat, where we're going to make some self-portraits in real time together as a spell, as an act of reclamation, as an expression of embodiment. So I was terrified to quit my job. I filmed myself in the moment. I've got when I listen back to it, I can hear my voice shaking because I needed the proof that I did this thing. If you're a survivor of trauma, the brain will do this thing where it's like, oh, that didn't happen and you're making it up. Because the body wants to bypass the intensity of what happened, right? It makes sense that we don't want to hold that in our soma. Oh my gosh, Soji's coming in. I forgot to close my office door. You want to see it? No. Oh, did you just go skiing with Daddy? She just went cross-country skiing with her daddy. Okay. Daddy Max, can you call Miss Soji, love, and close the door, please? Soji, girl, here. Okay. Can you close the door? Thank you, love. Just a little family moment. So the body is going to want to bypass the intensity, because if you don't have the tools to rest and digest, if you don't actually know how to activate that parasympathetic state, you're going to want to go past it because it's too intense. And that makes so much sense. And that is why I'm offering Journey and Download, because we get to understand how to resource ourselves and create a container within our self-care practice to rinse and regulate so that we can renew, restore, and recharge and rise to meet the altar of our lives. Rise and remember, we can stand on our 2 feet and shine our heart forward, and that what we want is seeking us, so we can just move forward with our hearts open and continue to trust the path, knowing that every obstacle is also cultivating our faith and our devotion at next levels of willingness. So I was terrified to quit this job. It didn't make logical sense in my brain, but it made sense to my heart and soul. Let me know in the comments if you've ever had to make a decision that didn't make sense in your mind. Maybe their confirmation bias comes in and is like, this has never worked for me. That doesn't make sense. This isn't going to work. Here's all this evidence I already have about how it's not going to work. But your heart and your soul were saying something different. And then you found yourself in this cognitive dissonance, right? This cognitive dissonance. I find that when I or my clients are in cognitive dissonance, we usually need to reconnect to the breath and the body to resource the wisdom, because we're too in the mind. The brain is too hot. There's too much information. So we need to pause and we need to quiet so that maybe the voice of the heart and soul, which hasn't had space to be loud yet, gets invited to the front, and we let that bee roar. We let her make noise. We let our heart and our soul take up space in our bodies and in our lives. And I could feel this inner calling. I could feel this inner prompting that this choice to quit my job and start Blood, Bone, and Honey, this is back in 2018, was a devotion. And this perceived block, all of this stuff that was coming up for me, was actually my portal, which we talked all about last week. 3 ways to meet your blocks as portal in last week's episode 11 of the Devotional Drip. So good. I actually rewatched it this week when I was getting ready, or last week. I rewatched it last week after it went live, when I was putting together some final details for Journey and Download. And it was like, oh, right. Any stickiness, anything that feels challenging right now is actually my portal. I'm rising to meet this. I'm rising to meet this. I'm available to meet this. And if we want to get super multidimensional with it, and this doesn't work for everyone. So again, as always, take what resonates, leave the rest. It's you, your authority, your agency, your autonomy. You are a wisdom keeper. You already are embodying your higher self. You already are your higher self. This is just a journey of remembering. So if we want to get more multidimensional with it, it's already done. My soul already, even before I made the decision, there was a timeline where my soul already agreed to this, to my divine purpose, which extends beyond our vocation and our business and our soul mission. Like this is like personal and professional altars. So I could feel where my soul already agreed to this, and that I could resource even this level of suffering and pain as a portal into my peace and highest empowerment. That I could meet this assault, that I could meet this block, this tenderness, this density in a way that I never had before. That there's things that I had learned that I could use as information to either show me why this was going to be possible for me or why it wasn't. And discipline, that psychological discipline, as my coach Des says, that psychological discipline is a choice. And I know that's a pretty controversial thing to say in this current landscape that we're navigating, but like it is actually a choice. And so sometimes we have more capacity to make that choice because we're more resourced. And sometimes that choice doesn't feel possible because we're actually that activated in our nervous systems that we don't actually have the space. And we need team and we need coven to fly in and remind us, oh, right, I have this resource, which is the prayer of this drip. And I want you to know the power of 5 to 10 deep breaths. I want you to know the simple power of 5 to 10 deep breaths, where you start by filling up your lower lungs on your back, and you fill up those lower lungs on the back. And you can even try this as I'm describing it. So when you inhale, you can exhale through both your nostrils. Inhale through your nose. And as you inhale, let that inhale get big, fill up the lungs on the lower back, fill up the solar plexus, fill up this inner central sun right above the belly button. Let the breath flood to fill the heart and fill the chest, so the breath is rising bottom to top, expanding, and then exhaling, chest, solar plexus, lower lungs contract. And this ability to inhale and exhale what's old, exhale the old carbon dioxide, exhale the old stories. And sometimes like you think you've taken the exhale, but there's a little there's a little extra at the bottom of the dantian to like really get out. Practice inhaling and exhaling as a way to understand how it is that you're meeting your life. The breath is a tool to understand how we're meeting our life. If we're not connected to our breath, we're not connected to our life. So here's the truth. Since I quit that job, I have been scared at every bottom of every next level that my devotion to heal, my devotion to serve, and my devotion to rise brings me to. And I'm talking like the root chakra gets shooketh level of fear. I'm talking like the identity, the self-concept and identity cracks open, and you like forget who you are in order to reroot and reclaim who you're practicing being now, who you're practicing being now. Who you are practicing being now. Your identity and your self-concept and your beliefs are a practice. They are not, once you have a belief, it doesn't mean that you can't change that belief system. That's just what we were told. So there's always this malleability. There's always this capacity to transform that's available to us. We can bring the wisdom of what we have learned before and let it be normal and natural for new things to be uncertain or unclear because we're not yet acquainted with them yet. Like, how much sense does that make? That the new thing would feel intimidating and scary because it's new. And some of these really simple baseline truths that we can just water our beings with are the things that create capacity and spaciousness in our nervous systems, in our hearts, in our minds to harness the power and agency of our choice. And anxiety and excitement can resonate very similar in the nervous system. So while pathology can be so helpful to understand, and it's been so powerful for my own personal healing journey and the healing journey of my clients, be mindful of when you are over pathologizing, when you're getting too attached to naming the feeling, because that doesn't create space for potential, right? So when we name it in a way that makes it too tight, like, oh, I'm just so anxious about this new experience. Okay, cool, that's there. What about the excitement? What about the excitement? And I say this as a person who has anxiety and who navigates panic attacks as a result of my complex trauma. My nervous system gets more resilient. I create more capacity with every day and every breath, but this is a very real lived experience for me. So I don't say this to minimize like the realness of anxiety, but I say it to invite that to the altar in addition to the excitement. And can our anxiety and our excitement, can they start to like hang out a little bit more? What can anxiety teach excitement, and what could excitement teach anxiety? Because sometimes what I'm calling anxiety is also my wisdom that I actually do need to get that thing done. And I actually do need to time block that 20 minutes to do that thing, because I'm totally going to forget if I don't write it down. And it's not my anxiety telling me to look at my to-do list, it's my wisdom, but I'm calling it anxiety because I've been programmed to call it anxiety. So that's a really convoluted conversation, but I'm just saying this to offer you the power of your perspective and to remind you that that's always available to you. And that we can, like, this moment is not an either or moment. We're done with black and white. We're done with binary. We're done with right and wrong. Can we start hanging out in the end, in addition to, in the space where it's a space of uncertainty. So again, it's the space where our faith and our devotion gets cultivated. And I deeply believe that that is the call of this moment, to cultivate our faith and to cultivate our devotion at deeper levels, to our own heart's prayer to be free, so then we can embody that liberation on behalf of all beings. And then we move from this place of liberation, wanting to shine and share that out. And we're so convicted in that we can't help but show up as helpers. Because if you're in the Blood, Bone, and Honey community, like, you're a helper. And I'm so glad you're a helper. So if you're going to be a helper for the heart of humanity, you got to be a helper for your own precious little heart. When you back off and you stop bossing yourself around, and I say this as a bossy witch, Capricorn sun over here, honey. When you back off and you stop bossing yourself around, and you stop telling yourself what you are and what you're not, and what you believe and what you don't, and what that person thinks and what they don't, and you meet that part of your consciousness that's just trying to understand what's happening, right? So they can be safe. And you understand, wow, what breeds compassion? Curiosity and understanding. I understand the part of me that wants to label and name things and be bossy. But when we can bring that little being and we can tuck them under our arms, and we can say, all right, I hear you've got some ideas, but we're not labeling anymore. We're not bossing around, but your wisdom is welcome. So please whisper in my ear, what do you have to say? Or if you need a microphone, here it is. I'll write it out in the journal. But it's only part of the truth. We acknowledge it's only part of the story, because if we're telling ourselves what we are and what we're not, then we create space to develop a new self-concept. So the art of higher self-embodiment, and any kind of art, I say this as an artist, any kind of art that you want to make in your world, are you giving it space to reveal to you what it is? Are you giving yourself space to reveal to your own consciousness and heart that you're a witch who connects to her mind, body, and breath, and through that makes the new choice, makes the new commitment, forms the new belief, infuses and amplifies the new self-concept in alignment with your highest good, versus like, this is who I am, I'm always like this, I always do this. Anytime you're using always or should, you're stuck and you're bossing yourself around. Drop the always, drop the should, and watch the way that potential reveals itself to you. As Buddhist nun Pema Chodron says, fear is a natural reaction to moving closer to the truth of who you are, the truth of what you're made of, the truth of what you have the capacity to create to your life, and ultimately to claim your creatorhood, your agency, and your sovereign connection to the divine, which means that you don't need anyone or anyone else or any set of rules or rituals or whatever to connect to the divine that is always available within you. To do that, to claim your creatorhood, to claim your agency, to claim your sovereign connection to the divine, is to practice the art of higher self-embodiment. To be an artist and not identify as an artist is very challenging. To be an artist and identify as an artist creates space for potential because you're claiming it. You're saying, this is who I am, the power of our I am presence, our I am identity. I am an artist, and I might be struggling right now with imposter syndrome. Seems to be one that's really loud in the collective space right now for leaders and light workers. I am an artist and I'm navigating imposter syndrome. So I know that that's my block. That's also my portal into my most multidimensional expression. Great. I'm so glad that this is showing up on my path right now. Because if this imposter syndrome wasn't showing up, then I actually wouldn't have the potential to claim an expression that I haven't stepped into. So this imposter syndrome actually becomes my ally. And we're going to get into this with our oracle cards that came forward today because they're so good. We have Magdalene Media, that's so good, giving the art space to reveal what it is. Totally. I say this to you as a witch who had 5 thesis projects. You need to have 1. I had 5. Who else is a multi-passionate creator here? Can you relate? I had 5 thesis projects. Like, I really needed to hit. I needed the film. I needed the performance piece. I wanted the photographs on the wall. I wanted to create the book. I wrote this book when I was in grad school. So all of that, I couldn't tell it what it was. It revealed to me over time what it wanted to be. And Blood, Bone, and Honey continues to reveal to me. Let me also just speak into the space of creating a calendar for your quarter or your year. And these are the projects I'm going to launch this year. And here's what I'm going to do. So powerful to harness your agency to plan and map it out for yourself. Can you also be rooted in your devotion enough and your willingness and your availability that when something comes up, you're like, oh, I'm actually only available to receive this prompting as an invitation into even more alignment with what I am seeking and what is seeking me. I am only available to live through the consciousness that that love is my guide, that love is my leader, love is God, love is everything, love is the leader, love is goddess, love is source, love is through which all things are made and connected. So I'm gonna resource that, and I'm gonna make the choice. I'm gonna make the choice. This goes back to last week's episode on meeting our blocks as portals as well. I live from the consciousness that anything that is revealing itself on my path is for my highest good. Anything, no matter what, there is always the option to choose more love. What becomes possible when that becomes the lens? So the art of higher self-embodiment practice the art of higher self-embodiment in practice calls us to be mindful, heartful, and soulful with these 3 things, these 3 spells of Blood, Bone, and Honey as the brushes on the canvas of our life. So we're going to start with the blood. We're going to start with the blood, that part of the spell. And the blood is going to ask us to honor what's alive. Higher self-embodiment will first ask you to turn to the bloodfulness of your being to see what's alive for you right now. What is there for you to meet with non-judgmental presence? When you meet that, what's there to then be met through a space of opening and revealing, prompted through the mind, body, and heart. I'm going to invite you to consider, and maybe closing your eyes helps you welcome in metaphor and welcome in visual. So if that feels good, I invite you to do that. I invite you to consider the way that you'd meet a friend or an animal that was feeling scared. Would you rush up to them and be loud in their face and tell them a bunch of things about what you think? Or would you listen? The feminine principle of yin, of listening. Would you listen to what they have to say about what they're feeling so that you could meet them there in the very realness of that? Or would you tell them what they're feeling? Oh, you're feeling these things right now. Imagine if you sat down with a friend and you were like, before they even told you what was up, you were like, yeah, I get it. I get what you're feeling and I get what's going on, and let me tell you what's going on. Let me tell you how I think you're feeling. Anytime we're talking about how we think we're feeling versus how we actually feel, which is often a lot less sophisticated, when we're talking about how we think we feel, it can be really there's this, I notice this programming when I'm working with myself and with my clients, where there's this, we almost like want to dress it up and make it sound more advanced, because maybe that's what kept us safe in our past, was making things that actually felt really fucking challenging like more okay, like I'm fine, I don't need anything, so if we have bypassed our needs in any way, if we have identified as codependent or people pleasing in any way, then this is a real reorientation for our consciousness to stop, drop, tune in, and listen. When we project onto ourselves and when we gaslight ourselves out of our own experience of being in the bloodfulness, being in the wisdom, being in the realness of what's there, the feeling gets locked, lodged, and stuck in the body. It imprints in our energy and becomes a part of our energy signature. And the radio signals in the form of our vibration that we're now sending out to all of creation get obscured. When you allow the body and the breath and the bloodfulness of your life to reveal to you what's there and what's alive for you right now, then you can, from a place of agency, from a place of breath, make your next choice from that space of inner resource. So I pulled 2 cards for today's drip. Let me know how this is landing for you. What's the blood bringing up for you? What's coming up? I pulled 2 cards for today's drip. One from my Magdalene deck and one from my Faceted Earth deck. And the first one is Herbal Allies. The first card I pulled is Herbal Allies for how to meet the art of higher self-embodiment. Herbal Allies. So this card is pointing to the healing and the medicine and the nourishment, the wisdom of nature and the fruits of our devotion, the fruits of our labor, the fruits that have come into being on our journey so far. These remedies and these gifts from the earth and the soil of our being and our experience and the quite literal earth itself. So what does the wisdom, what does the aliveness of your blood, of your aliveness want to reveal to you about how you are prepared and supported already? So before we peek into how to create more space for the art of higher self-embodiment in our life, rather than functioning from a deficit, rather than putting another thing on our to-do list that we have to do because we're not doing it, rather than like getting lost in all of that, I'm going to invite you to start with understanding how you're already resourced. What have the fruits of your journey showed you thus far about what a bad bitch you are and how you can meet what's in front of you right now in wisdom and bloodful presence? What does the wisdom and aliveness of your blood want to reveal to you about how you are already supported and already prepared? I'm going to invite you to write 3 things down. Maybe it's 3 things that you've learned. Maybe it's 3 tools that you're already using in your practice. Maybe it's a plant ally. Maybe it's a self-care practice that you already do every day. And maybe it's a lesson that you just learned. And then I want you to consider these things that you're writing, maybe more than 3 come through. This is like your little basket. This is your little basket of all your little allies. And at any moment, you can reach into that basket and be like, wow, in this realness and this aliveness of the blood of my journey, I can resource my allies. Perhaps like I have learned in the past that my fear is a natural reaction to me moving closer to my truth. And I know that. So I'm going to re-anchor into what I already know about that. Or maybe you're meeting that for the first time. Maybe you heard that for the first time 10 minutes ago and you're like, wow, that's also a part of what I now know. What do you already know that's going to help you in your next steps forward? What do you already have? To celebrate that, to resource gratitude around that is to light that inner spark so that we're not taking inventory from a place of deficit, but we're taking inventory understanding like, wow, I have already learned some shit. I've been through some shit. Here's my wisdom on that blood. Here's my wisdom on that stuff that I've lived through. It's all in my basket. I'm a wisdom keeper. I know some things. I have some knowledge. I have some awareness. Like, it is so empowering to own that. And when you tell yourself that truth, think about how that cultivates self-trust within you. When you're like, mind, body, heart, soul, here's what we know. Here's what we've got. So we got this. We got this. And when you own what you do know, when you own what you do have, when you resource and you use every last crumb and drip of what you have, it's like when you make the roast chicken in the oven, you don't throw away the bones, you keep the bones and you make the bone broth. That is the wisdom of the bloodfulness of honoring what's there and creating more magic from it. It's the energy of compost. It's the energy of life and death. It's the energy of cycle. It's the energy can't be created or destroyed. So how can I resource the energy that's already within me right now to practice the art of higher self-embodiment? To be in the blood of a higher self-embodiment is to know what's there and what you have available to you. Blood is real. It's red. It's loud. You can't ignore it. It's usually a sign that there is an awareness that needs to be resourced. If you're bleeding, maybe you need to put some pressure on the bleeding to reduce the amount of blood coming out. Maybe you need a Band-Aid. Maybe you just need to let that thing drip on the sidewalk until it dries out in the sun. So there's so many ways we could use this metaphor, but think about that, consider that, and when I say think about that, I mean investigate that. To think is to investigate, to consider, not to play the loop of the subconscious or the loop of whatever's going on in the limbic brain. We can call it the limbic loop, where we get stuck in the fear story. You're dropping into the breath, you're dropping into the blood, and you're looking around and you're seeing what you already have within you. So again, our prompt is, what does the wisdom and aliveness of my blood want to reveal to me about how I am prepared and supported already? How are you prepared and supported already? Enter this through a frequency of celebration. Vibration precedes manifestation. See how we're weaving this all together? Okay, getting into the bone. Actually, before we go into the bone, I want to share with you the second oracle card. So, how am I supported already? Use your breath to connect to that. And then why did we do this in the first place? Why are we even practicing resourcing the wisdom and the bloodfulness and the aliveness of our life? To reveal the beloved. To reveal the beloved. To access the beloved within ourselves is to access the aspect of our consciousness that knows it is eternally loved. This card says love is the gateway to an endless universe where the light of 1 billion stars forever glows through one eternal spirit. So first method for practicing the art of higher self-embodiment is to be in the blood, to be in what's real for you versus the story, versus the limbic loop of what's happening. Use your breath to circulate stagnancy and let the wisdom of your higher self be revealed to you from within. Because you want to access this part of the consciousness. You want to access that. You want to create that internal feeling tone where you remember you are the beloved. You are the beloved, and you're caring for the beloved, and you're resourcing from that place of belovedness, from being a child of this multiverse that is connected to all things and cannot be separate from the source that it comes from. Going into the bone. The bone is all about creating structure. When we're in the bones, it's about creating structure for ourselves in the form of habits, routines, and rituals that support the aliveness of the blood. If we want to look at the blood as the feminine principle, we can look at the bones as the masculine principle. So we are resourcing our inner divine masculine to create the container for our feminine, or for life force, or blood, or flow, or the impulse of creation and feeling, to have a place to live, to have a place to gestate. Because if that feeling, if that energy doesn't have a place to go, what's it gonna do? It's gonna get pushed down. It's gonna get pushed down in the body. So I want to ask with our Herbal Allies here. I love this card so much. I'm actually gonna give you a second to just look at it too. we're going to ask from the wisdom of our Herbal Allies card here, who are your allies right now? What's your allies right now in your life? How are you creating structure for your being to feel safe and secure and held within what may feel a little chaotic at the altar of your life? What tools are going to help you get the job done? Think about the bone. What tools are going to help you get the job done? One of these tools can be your self-care practice. A phrase I've heard since I started Blood, Bone, and Honey is that self-care functions as art and ritual at the altar of our lives. We're going to put that spell into practice this weekend in Journey and Download, link below to join us. So we need the structure to be co-creative from the wisdom of our blood, of what's alive for us right now, of what's coming up for us, what feeling is there. We can ask ourselves what kind of structure would be supported for the beloved within us right now, in order to navigate the realness, the wildness of our human journey. This is the space where the bones is the space where we create the structure for for our humanity and our divinity to unite as one and work together in a co-creative process. So your prompt for bone, for harnessing the art of higher self-embodiment, is to ask yourself, what is one thing I can commit to every day as an act of self-care to connect with my higher self and the beloved, the one within me that is eternally cherished? What allows you to feel that? For me, it's always breathing and it's always dancing. It's like those two things, no matter what, no matter where I'm at, if I can connect to my breath, I can connect to the present moment. If I can start dancing, then my dancing, my movement, my body can reveal to me what's coming up for me. And so through the structure, through the bones of saying every day, no matter what, no matter how busy I am, no matter what's coming up at the altar of my life, I make space to breathe and I make space to dance. And that is me being in my masculine, in my divine masculine, being in the bones. Remember, Max gave me the bone in the spell of Blood, Bone, and Honey, being in the bones to create the structure, to create the kind of experience that I want to have in my blood, in my life. So the second way we can approach the art of higher self-embodiment is through creating the structure and support in our very real lives to have that connection of actually connecting to our higher selves through our body and through our breath. So what's that thing for you? Maybe it's dancing. Maybe you want to come dance with us this weekend. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's pottery. Maybe it's cooking. Maybe it's walking in the woods. Like, whatever that thing is for you that gets you connected to your breath, that reminds you that you are connected to the pulse of all creation and you're not just hanging, dangling out here in space or frozen in time and space without any resource or capacity, that you're connected to this mycelium network of consciousness, this mycelium network of love, and you can resource the bloodfulness of that. You can resource the aliveness of that through creating structure in the bones. So again, the prompt is, what is one thing I can commit to every day as an act of self-care to connect to my higher self and the beloved? This would be considered one of your codes of higher self-care. We are going to be looking at those codes this weekend in Journey and Download, but right now, this code, very important. And even if you're joining Journey and Download this weekend, I see quite a few of you here that are going to have already signed up for this weekend. It's like starting right now to prepare for the experience, to let yourself go even deeper. What can you commit to over the next 4 to 5 days to create some bone, divine masculine, devoted structure? Again, separate from gender. We're talking principles of consciousness. We're talking structure. We're talking container, so that the bloodfulness can be in the container and you can access the wisdom of your feeling, and you can resource the wisdom of your feeling as an ally to bring you to where you're ready to grow and glow at the altar of your life. All of it is relevant. and we can create the container to be in the wisdom of the relevancy through our practice. Is this making sense? I know we're talking in big metaphors. That's how I rock and roll. I trust if you're here, that's how you experience, or that is one way that you are able to like hang out in these kind of conversations. I know for me, like metaphor is such a window into the soul and a window into multidimensionality and a way of meeting. Self-care has been commodified. We're told we need this, this, and this outside of us in order to care for ourselves. We have to purchase it. We have to buy it. We have to do all this shit. And it's not true. It's become a huge industry. And I've watched the development of this industry since like 2018 very closely, very closely. The way self-care has become a buzzword. Embodiment has become a buzzword. But it's very simple. Again, you can resource the power of your breath to connect. You can put on a song for 5 minutes and dance it out. And if you remember the invitation to let yourself reveal when you're writing in the journal, when you're dancing, when you're breathing, when you're in your yoga practice, when you're in the walk in the woods, when you're pulling the oracle card, when you're in the hard fucking conversation that you don't want to be in that feels so intense, can you let love and life reveal itself to you through the moment, through the blood? And then can you have created the structure in your practice so that maybe by the time you get to that conversation at the altar of your life, you're like, oh, I'm still feeling scared about this, but I already met this fear in my practice. I already created this structure with the bones to be with the blood of my feeling. So now I can meet this altar of my life from a different perspective, from that eagle eye, higher self eye view, which is also simultaneously this root chakra, lower 3 chakra, belly to the ground wisdom. I'm going to leave that one there. We're going to go into the honey. The honey. So this is the third way we can start to practice the art of higher self embodiment. The honey is all about sweetening and enhancing our lives with higher self connection. We do our practice at the altar in our homes to show up at presence at the altar of our lives. If we're sweetening, if we're watering, if we're loving on ourselves in our practice, and we're creating that bone masculine structure to do that. So we do it every day, and we're creating a sense of reliability and self-trust. We know we're going to get watered. We know we're going to get that care. We know that no matter how scary the dream was, hands up in the air if you're clearing some stuff from your subconscious in the dream space right now as we collectively purge and show the underbelly of darkness that's ready to be penetrated with light. Raise your hand if you're a psychic witch in the coven who's having some dreams right now. When you have the structure of your practice, you know that no matter what happened last night, no matter what you got to do today, there's going to be time for you to tap in and resource the sweetness of the beloved, the sweetness of your presence, the sweetness of your practice and your presence and your breath as an ally. And again, we're doing it at the altar of our practice so we can do it at the altar of our lives. But so even that, if we miss a day, sorry, my channel is moving fast right now. Even if we miss a day, even if we can't make it that day, or even if we go 3 weeks and we haven't like taken a conscious breath, there's this reserve, there's this resilience, there's this stretchiness in the nervous system that's been built. So perhaps it's not that there's no reactivity, but the reactivity has come into balance with our ability to respond, our response ability. So we're no longer just reacting from fear or trauma or what's happened in the past, evidence of what's happened in the past, projecting onto what's going to happen in the future. Like we've got that there, but we've also got the resourcefulness and the ability to respond that we've resourced through our practice. We've resourced through like, oh, wait, when I take a deep breath, my reality shifts. I can modulate my energy. Even if like things are coming through my channel hot right now. There's like a lot that wants to come through. And I'm still the authority of that. Like I'm still the authority of that. We are not our thoughts. We are the one who is the steward and receiver of our thoughts and downloads. We get to receive this. And there's something so sweet about that, right? If we can meet what's there to be met within ourselves with the sweetness of our presence, then we can bring that presence to the altar of our lives so that we can be more able to respond with less reactivity. Notice I'm not saying no reactivity, I'm saying less reactivity, less fear, fear less. We don't have to do an all or nothing thing anymore. Because we've already been with the reactivity and what comes up in our practice. Like, it's really trippy to witness like what comes up in your personal practice with yourself. And like, if you're working on like shifting a self-concept or an identity, and then you watch the way that that's mirrored at the very real altar of your life, like that's the multidimensional self-care practice. The self-care doesn't just happen at the altar of our practice, it happens in the moment of the conversation, in the moment of making the decision, in the moment of taking the action. My coach Des reminded me last week that our spells, our action is a spell. The action that we take is actually a spell. It's shifting our timeline. It's creating a new path. So sweeten your life with your practice. Pave the way, create the way, roll out the red carpet for your own heart. Sweeten your life with artfulness, sensuality, tactileness. Make yourself that morning beverage. Put the little butterfly clips that you've had since you were 5 years old in your hair. Show up adorned like the altar. Give yourself the gift of a breath. Drink water when you need to drink water. And then watch the way that teaches and parents your consciousness. Oh, wait, this bitch is now going to show up for me? Like, she's got me? And the parts of your inner committee that are terrified to live life, to show up, to do whatever that thing is for you that you have to do, perhaps right now on your path, those parts of your consciousness can click into the knowing that they're no longer alone, that you and your higher self embodiment have got you. And self-care becomes art and ritual at the altar of your life. It's just the way that you approach your life now. Higher self-embodiment becomes a way of being, doing, and living that we can default back to and understand, like WWHSD. I just channeled that in this moment. What would my higher self do? What would this consciousness within me do that knows it is the beloved, that knows it is an expression of love, that knows that every feeling, every story, every block coming up on my path is actually an ally on this spiralic human journey in the labyrinth, pointing me towards more of my light, because the art of higher self-embodiment is to embody more of your light in your human body. What does that mean for you? How do you make meaning of that? How does your consciousness want to interpret that? If you want to drop it in the comments, please feel free. Helen said, my dreams are having me questioning my reality right now. Yeah, right? So this is important. This is our wisdom. This is our wisdom. Our wisdom has been, how do I want to say this? Anything to do with the witch wound. So this would be this. I see imposter syndrome connected to the witch wound. I see self-doubt and self-denial and self-deprivation deeply connected to the witch wound. The witch wound being this aching within us that we are going to be persecuted for our magic and our truth and our wisdom. In meeting that wound, we could also meet it as a block, right? In meeting that wound, in meeting that tenderness, to honor our wisdom as valid starts to become the medicine. So do you see now how your wisdom quite literally becomes a metaphoric herbal ally in your system? It soothes that pain of I don't have a right to do this. I can't do this. If I do this, if I do say this, if I do live my life this way, what will they say? What will they do? What will happen? Will I be outcast? Will the tribe abandon me? To understand that all of those feelings and thoughts are a byproduct of the persecution of our wisdom is to reclaim it, is to quite literally reclaim it. And then watch how you have the dream journal next to your bed on the floor. And instead of opening your phone to look on social media when you wake up, not saying that you're doing this, Helen, or anyone else here is doing this, but I certainly know that I have a tendency to do this with the addiction to social media. When you start operating in that way, and your self-care practice just becomes a part of your life, the art of higher self-embodiment is just the way you live your life, then the dream journal is the first thing you reach for. And a practice I've been really loving when getting out of bed to meet the very realness of this world, is naming a couple things that I'm grateful for, and to really anchor into the truth that when I embody peace and I honor and treat myself with kindness, then I can radiate that kindness and that texture of peace out into the world. And that may just be to that person in my Instagram DMs that day who's having a moment and just needs a little bit of love, Like, when I am resourced in the art of higher self-embodiment, I can then meet that. Or I can meet my husband if he's cranky, or I can meet myself if I'm cranky, or if the dog shits on the floor, or if, something happens with technology. Like, there's this resourcefulness that's already happened. And there's this knowing that the wisdom of whatever is arriving is an ally. And I don't like to use the word test, but it is an invitation. Like, oh, how am I going to meet this very similar texture that showed up in my life and on my journey before? Oh, I recognize this. I recognize this texture of fear, this texture of anxiety. What does it want to teach me and show me now about my wisdom, about the realness of my downloads and my intuition, right? We've been programmed and gaslit the fuck out of our intuition and out of our wisdom. So to reclaim that and to hold space in our life for that, to hold space for the blood, to create the bone, the structure that allows that to happen. Then the honey follows, the sweetness follows. Like, it's just a non-negotiable that I show up on the devotional drip adorned. So my body knows that, okay, every Monday before noon, I get dressed up in my and I get to feel like the altar, and I get to tend to my altar, and I get to make the space look pretty, and I get to show up. And that is beautiful for me because I love doing this. And that is an example of the sweetness, right? So the prompt here is, how can I honor myself as a work of art and my life as a canvas? And if that's true, 111 on our time together, then everything that you've lived through already becomes a paint within your palette. And all of the different ways that you can self-care become different textures and thickness of brushes. And you can resource your allies, your tools, your wisdom, and you can tend to and care for yourself like the beloved. And sometimes we need the somatic memory of what that feels like. And sometimes we need to have something to mark the end of a chapter of a way of doing and being our lives in order to open the portal for another. It's the death, it's the sacred shed that actually creates the potential. It is the energy that is the potential to create the new life that leads to the birth. So we're going cyclical. We're going back into the circle, back into the spiral. My teacher, one of my teachers, Nina, said the other day on a mindfulness class I was in with her, that we're moving from this lingam structure, this very linear structure, this hierarchical structure, hierarchical structure, to things being flipped on their side, and now we're in the spiral, and now we're in the labyrinth, and now it's like, nobody's the teacher or the student. We're all the teachers. We're all the students. And we're coming together through the power of weaving our consciousness to create, quite literally, new neural pathway connections in our own brain, which then is quite literally shifting the neural network of the collective consciousness. And the beloved, again, reminds us that love is the gateway to an endless universe where the light of 1 billion stars forever glows through one eternal spirit. So through honoring yourself as the beloved and being kind to your own heart, this is like the essential teaching of Buddhism, you can then be kind to all beings. And it sounds simple, but it's deeply profound when you consider the quality of your self-talk, when you consider the quality of how you meet what's right in front of you on your path right now, and knowing that you can honor yourself, your journey, your personal journey, your personal non-linear journey of healing, awakening, and becoming as a work of art, and your life as a canvas, and then what becomes possible. Like, it is already done, but what I want to say is hell on earth is not preordained. It is not preordained. We are actually in a moment of a ring of fire of birth within the collective consciousness. And you don't have to believe that if that's not your truth. But that is the frequency and the consciousness that I teach from, the consciousness of the divine feminine, the consciousness that every death leads to a new birth, and that there is space for potential, and that we have the capacity through the power of our thought, through the power of our peace, through the power of our action, to create a heaven on earth reality within our own beings and within our life. And then that trickles out to the altar of the collective, and the way that we meet our divine purpose, the way that we speak to the person at the grocery store. Maybe we then feel available to share a smile and to offer grace and space where maybe there was none before. And that is transformative. My whole body is covered with goosebumps, and I just want to weep at like the power of our prayer. The power of our prayer to live on purpose, to live in purpose, to know that we are actively creating something in every moment, with every breath. We are creators. What do you want to create? Brilliant artist, writer, and activist Sonia Renee Taylor said, in the heat of 2020 and COVID coming into being, and all of the protests that were happening around Black Lives Matter and the anti-racist movements that were rising on the planet, they said that they don't want to be in company with people anymore that don't have the capacity to imagine and dream a new reality. So be very mindful of the way that you are dreaming this new reality into being. And in the same way that our dream state is reinforming things within our subconscious, we can also be in our waking dream. We can be in our waking dream and understand what is ours and what is not ours. If you are feeling anxious right now, own the anxiety that is yours, own the fear that is yours, own the very real signature of what that is in your own unique experience, and then understand that there's also this collective fear and mourning and grieving happening. It is the ring of fire of the birth canal. New consciousness is being birthed onto the planet. Have you ever seen someone birth a baby? It's not quiet. It's not quiet. There's blood and there's shit and there's screaming. I mean, I'm not going to say what birth is. There's a million different ways to birth, but it's bloodful. It's real. You know, and so is this journey. So is the journey of healing. Birth, I am so grateful for my training that I did in birth as a part of my training to be a coach and a higher self embodiment doula. That's not just a cute name. Like, I am here to support you in birthing yourself, in birthing your higher self. I'm not doing the birthing. And if you're a practitioner, a coach, or a teacher, you're not doing that for your clients, for your students, for those who you're walking with. We are holding a fierce space for the birth to be whatever the birth needs to be. And holding that fierce space with the art of higher self-embodiment means embodying your peace. It means embodying your power. It means resourcing the bloodfulness. It means knowing what your allies are and using them. It's great if we know what helps us. Are we doing it? Are we doing it? And if we're not an opportunity to shame or guilt ourselves for that. And notice if that's the default. There's another choice. The other choice is like, oh, I haven't been doing that thing for myself that really helps me. I'm gonna start helping myself more. I'm gonna be my own ally. And sometimes, and I will say this over and over again, being your own ally means asking for help. It means seeking guidance. It means getting team and coven and community around you and speaking into that space, what you need, who you are, who you're becoming, and what your boundaries are. and where you're available to receive. Like, again, our words are spells, the power of our communication, the power of our communication. Um, I'm sensing into if there's anything else to deliver on this drip, or there's anything that needs to just, yeah, the channel is feeling complete. The prompt for number 3 for resourcing the honey and the art of higher self embodiment is, how can I honor myself as a work of art and my life as a canvas? This is the foundational conversation of what we're going to be putting into practice in this week's 3-day virtual, available worldwide, multidimensional self-care and higher self-embodiment retreat, journey and download. And I'm going to shift into speaking to the program now. So if you're complete, if you feel like you got what you need, if you don't want to hear about journey and download, please feel free to either go ahead and click the link to the blog if you're watching the replay and go get into those journal prompts, go get into those movement prompts. I've also provided a practice playlist for you. And if you are ready to receive the transmission of higher self-embodiment as a practice, then stay tuned, and we're going to talk a little bit about the our retreat this weekend, journey and download. Put our little cards here. Take a sip of water, the power of a sacred pause to reset. Also, please feel free to let me know how that resonated for you, what it's bringing up on the blood, bone, and honey front. Is there one of those 3 that really stuck out for you? Is there something you're clear about that you're going to devote yourself to creating space for in your life now that maybe you weren't before? Again, we don't have to go from a level 10 intensity to a 0. We got to stop requesting things of ourselves that are impossible, because that's also a form of self-harm, right? To like set a standard for ourselves that actually doesn't honor where we're at. So like, if you're at a 10, boo, are you at a 9? Are you at a 9 now? Do you feel this much more space in your nervous system, in your mind, in your body, in your heart? If so, then we did it. We did it. That's all we got to do. We just got to create this much more space, this much more space. We're going to create a whole lot of space this weekend in Journey and Download, our 3-day virtual higher self-care retreat and higher self-embodiment boot camp, where we're going to be dancing, journaling, visioning, and journeying into the inner landscape, into the blood and the bones and the honey, so that we can then express from the multidimensionality of our higher self-truth and expression. This is like shed an identity, claim a new identity, shed a belief, claim a new belief, timeline shifting kind of experience. This 3-day experience is here to support you in stopping, dropping, and self-caring so that you can rise to meet the altar of your life and divine purpose, anchored in the primordial peace and resourced in the power of your mind, body, and higher self connection. Come bask in 3 days, my dear, of guided, facilitated. Sometimes we need that guidance. Sometimes we need that facilitation. Even if we can lead ourselves through it, I am in a space at least 3 times a week, if not more, where someone is guiding and facilitating an experience for me to heal, to rinse, to renew, to recharge. And so from a place of actively doing that for myself, I want to remind you that even if you are an advanced practitioner, to have a space facilitated for that for you is a gift that we never stop giving to ourselves, no matter how advanced we get, no matter how much fear space we're holding for other people. We need to have space for ourselves to be in our own wisdom, to be in what's there to be met, to rinse it out, to fill back up, so then we can reapproach our lives from a new perspective and a new frequency and consciousness. So come spend 3 days in guided, somatic, artful, playful, and spiritual self-care and higher self-embodiment practice that's going to support you in rinsing, renewing, restoring, regulating the nervous system, releasing, receiving, recharging, and replenishing. Day 1 is going to be big mystical PJ party vibes. Everyone's going to come adorned in their favorite PJs. We're going to make our little yin nest on the floor for our journey. And essentially, I'm going to guide you into if you've ever done yoga nidra, it's a very yoga nidra style inner meditative breathwork visualization journey where we're going to start connecting with the physical body. Then we're going to go and connect through the chakra system, through the 7 main chakras. And then we are going to access that higher self wisdom. There's going to be a visualization experience where you're going to connect with your higher self. And there's going to be downloads and wisdom that come through your willingness to press the sacred pause button and receive what's been there waiting for the space to reveal itself to you. So we're going to start with our mystical PJ party where we all receive messages from our higher selves. This is like actually my dream coming into form. Like, this is what I want to do on my Friday night. I want to guide you to a place of being so deeply connected to your higher self that you have that revelation you've been waiting for through the power of your body, through the power of your breath, and the somatic remembering that you get to tap in, tune in order to turn on, and that option is always available to you. And to ask yourself to move forward before pausing is actually not kind. It's actually not kind because there's not space, then there's not resource. So we're going to start with our regulation. We're going to start with rinsing. We're going to start with resourcing that wisdom. Then day 2 is serving a magical meditative movement journey into the inner landscape and higher self-expression of you. We're going to be using a framework called the 7 pillars of higher self-embodiment. It is a 7-step multidimensional self-care system where we're going to go between somatic movement, sacred dance, and then journaling our downloads that we receive through moving, through dancing, which I'm going to write and speak to tomorrow on the newsletter, as well as on Instagram. So if you're not following me on Instagram, it's at Blood, Bone, and Honey, and you can join the newsletter at the link below. That will be going out too. The newsletter coming tomorrow, Dancing for Higher Self Downloads, because you can dance for your downloads, witch. And I want you to know that. And we're going to experience that in real time together. All 3 days are also recorded. So we're going to do this sequence. We're going to do these 3 days of activation, and then you can actually revisit this. My clients often tell me, when I've offered journeys like this, classes like this, workshops like this, that they go back and revisit it for a second round. So you're going to have this experience this weekend, and then you're also going to have the replay so you can go and do it again, or if you can't join us live. I did end up shifting the times on the weekend so that our folks in the Southern Hemisphere could join us if they want. I know we have a lot of Aussie babes in the coven, so I'll just quickly tell you, Friday is 5 to 7:30, Saturday is 3 to 5:30, Sunday is 3 to 5:30. So you can have your luxurious morning space and time to ground and land, and then we're doing 5 to 7:30 on Friday, 3 to 5:30 on Saturday, 3 to 5:30 on Sunday, and this is Eastern Standard Time. Again, if you can't come live, the replay will go out, so you can receive that. And that's day 2, meditative movement journey into the inner landscape and higher self-expression of you, using the wisdom that came forward in day 1. And then day 3, the vibe is, and this has been such a dream of mine my whole life. First of all, I've always loved my art teachers. Hands up in the comments if your art teacher saved your life. My art teachers saved my life. So day 3, as an homage to that, I'm going to be offering, day 3 is going to be serving art club energy for sensual and spiritual baddies who are embodying their higher selves, who are making the choice to walk the fierce path of higher self-embodiment, which is available to everyone, but it's not for everyone if they don't choose it, because it is a path of revealing your greatest potential. And the journey of self-mastery it's not a test of faith, but it is an invitation of faith, which is why I'm also calling this a boot camp. This is a boot camp. Like, what mountains in consciousness do you need to climb right now? I want you to know you're not doing it alone. I want you to have tools to resource and support you. I want you to have a 3-day timeline jump. Because that's what we need right now. We get to resource this if it's the call. So if you've been wanting that thing that's going to like mark the end of one chapter, mark the beginning of another, mark the beginning of a new cycle. We've also got the new moon in Pisces this week, so perfect for our visioning and our pleasure practice. My Venus is in Pisces, so you better know these codes are getting infused. I was also raised by a Pisces, who my mother is actually the one who packaged these little butterflies up and sent them to me, and my grandma's clothes. So thank you, Mom, if you're watching. So we are going to be doing on day 3 art club vibes for sensual and spiritual baddies, embodying their multidimensional selves. We're going to make self-portraits, and we're going to do it in real time. And this self-portrait practice, this guided workshop where we're going to be making self-portraits together in real time, is also like building upon the experiences that we had in day 1 and day 2. So think about you going on this meditative movement. Think about this inner journey, this inner yoga nidra style journey that you're going to go on, this inner visualization to connect from within. We could call that the bloodfulness, right? Then day 2, we're bringing in structure. We're bringing in the 7 pillars of higher self embodiment, which once you learn these, and I've never taught them like this before. So even if you've tuned in to the 7 pillars practice before, we've been in the Heart Lab since November on this, and actually for the last couple of years, but really intensely since the fall. These pillars have revealed themselves at a next level of wanting to be utilized and resourced as codes of higher self activation. We're going to be practicing that. You're going to get a corresponding workbook that you can revisit over and over again. Again, this is a practice that you can do again. It's a template you can revisit. So we're going to do that. That's the bone. That's the structure. That's the container where we're going. There's a lot that's going to come up. It's going to come up through the body. We're going to open up the cracks and corners of the consciousness. It's going to be great. We're probably going to cry. We're probably going to laugh. We're probably going to I know we're going to have higher self revelation, because that's the point of the practice. And we're going to bring that revelation that happened in the blood and in the bones into day 3, where we're going to sweeten our lives through art, through self-portrait making. We're going to come adorned in this new higher self concept, expression, and identity that we claimed in day 2. And we're going to make some portraits and write some self-love letters to symbolize that. Because it's time to put ourselves back on the altar. If you don't have a picture of yourself on your own altar, honey, come make these self-portraits, print it out, put it on your altar, and then you're going to put your higher self affirmation and mantra right next to it, which we're going to download through our 3 days together. So that's the energy. That's all 3 days of journey and download. And you can find out more and claim your spot at the link in the description of this video until the cart closes on March 3rd. So please feel free to do that. And I actually might end up closing the cart on March 2nd. I know I just said March 3rd, but I think I want to give us a 24-hour just space for whoever comes into this coven space to like let our energy weave and work together, so that any adjustments that I need to make, that I feel called to make in alignment with who is actually joining this container can be made. So the cart's going to close on March 2nd. The cart is going to close on Wednesday. The description is in the link of this video. If you for some reason missed the cart close and you want in, and you're seeing this at a later date, there will be replays of this. I'm not sure how I'm going to handle that yet in terms of, after this journey and download is complete. Like if you want in for this first time we're doing this together, just come and join live. And if you can't join live, you will get the replays. So the replays are for people who purchase Journey and Download right now, who cannot come live and want to do it on their own time. Or you come live and you want to do it again, or we have some people who can only come for a little bit of it and not come for all of the live classes. So just know that's available to you. Link is in the description below. And remember to check out the blog post that's going to go out for the newsletter coven if you're watching live, with your journal prompts, movement prompts, and practice playlist. If you're joining on the replay, the blog is linked below. And I think that's all for today on the Art of Higher Self-Embodiment. We went a little longer than usual, so thank you for joining me for this expanded devotional drip episode. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email. It is Sarah with an H at bloodboneandhoney.com. And I look forward to seeing you next week on our episode 13 of the devotional drip. Oh, and it's 1:32 on our time right now, so we'll see what comes through for that magic. That'll be post journey and download, so I'm sure it's going to be epic. I can't wait to practice with those of you who've already signed up. I see some of you here, and so much love in the meantime. Please remember that you always have the authority, the agency, and the higher self-sovereign right to meet your journey resourced in the power of your mind, body, and higher self connection. that you are the altar, that you get to make art with your life, that the canvas is ever revealing itself and the masterpiece is ever revealing itself to you from within, what it's becoming, what it's becoming. So in an age where we've been so dominated by patriarchal rule and oppression, that wants to put its finger and say, this is what this is, your willingness to open to receptivity and be in the feminine principle of listening is such a radical act of love and devotion to your own heart and planet Earth. And please know that. Please know that. Please know that even tuning in today is an act of devotion and love to your own heart. I see my dad tuning in with a heart. Hi, Dad. And Kate says, what you do saved my life. Oh, Kate, it is an honor to walk with you, and it is but the prayer of my heart to facilitate experiences for multidimensional beings like you, like all of us here, to tap in and tune into the life that is waiting for us to meet it, because we are life. We are our life. And I'm so honored that I got to be a part of your journey in you remembering your bloodfulness, your lifefulness, your higher self expression. That is why I'm here on this planet. So a prayer answered, Kate, and I love you and thank you. And I'm so excited to see you this weekend and all the other beings who are coming. Okay, I can hang out here forever. We're going to do a little Macarita moment, and we're going to say peace, blessings, and love. I'll see you next week. Bye, darlings.